Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today, we're going to be taking a look at another disturbing case with you. Have you heard the story of the deaths of 4 students that happened in 2022 in the rural college town of Moscow, Idaho? A town that had not witnessed a murder in 7 years prior to this particular incident. We'll be looking at how these 4 bright young people unfortunately had their lives taken from them, and how far the process to get justice for them has gone. As always, our love and respect goes out to all those who knew and loved the victims and all those affected by this case. It was a sad morning in Moscow, Idaho on November 13th. The police found 4 students of the University of Idaho stabbed to death at their apartment. The police had been called by 2 housemates who found the students. The news of the deaths sparked serious outrage throughout Moscow, Idaho, and the entire United States. The police then arrested a 28-year-old PhD student from another university after over 6 weeks of investigating. The case is still ongoing in court, but a gag order has kept most of the details of the hearings away from the general public. A gag order is issued by a court to limit the information that can be passed to the public concerning an ongoing court case. Hence, we'll be looking at available information that has been pieced together about this case from the time of the occurrence to the ongoing investigation. 2 of the victims of the gruesome murder were 21-year-old Madison Mogen and her best friend, Kaylee Goncalves, also 21. Both were in their senior year at the University of Idaho. The other 2 victims were their housemates, Zana Kernodle, who was 20 and a junior, and her boyfriend, Ethan Chapin, a freshman and also 20. Kaylee Goncalves, a native of Rathdrum, Idaho, was one of 5 children in her family and was only a few weeks away from graduating college early. She was majoring in general studies at the College of Letters, Arts, and Social Sciences. Apparently, she was going to move to Austin, Texas to work at an IT firm, and had recently moved out of the house where she was killed, but returned to go out with her best friend. The second victim, Madison Mogen, was a marketing major who had a job at Mad Greek Restaurant, where Zana, another of the victims, also worked. According to Madison's dad, Ben Mogen, she and Goncalves had been inseparable since the 6th grade. Goncalves' mother also affirmed that their family thought of Mogen as one of their own kids, as the pair had grown up together. Kaylee and Madison were both in the same bed when it happened. Zana Kernodle was also majoring in marketing at the University of Idaho. She and her family lived in Avondale, Arizona, before they moved to Post Falls, Idaho. Kernodle was an athlete in high school, and when she graduated, she decorated a board with the words, "For the lives that I will change." Her family members have spoken about her as a very positive, funny, and lovable person. Her elder sister, Jasmine Kernodle, remember her fondly in a speech, telling everyone how Zana was a very light-hearted person and could lift a room. She was a server at Mad Greek Restaurant. "My sister, Zana Kernodle, is one of the happiest, funniest people I've ever met, and I had the awesome privilege of growing up with her, and I still have the hard time coming to terms with the fact that it did happen," and was in a romantic relationship with the 4th victim, Ethan Chapin. Ethan was the only male victim of the homicides. He was part of a set of triplets, with a brother, Hunter, and a sister, Maisie. Together with their parents, Jim and Stacy Chapin, they were a very close-knit family. He was from the small town of Conway, Washington, and attended University of Idaho with his siblings. According to his mother, Ethan was friends with Zana before they started dating. He was spending the night at the apartment house with his girlfriend after a party when the murders took place. The sad incident took place after they returned to their flat in the early hours of the morning following a night out. Zana and Ethan were reported to have attended a party at Ethan's Sigma Chi fraternity, only a short walk away from the apartment house where they were eventually murdered. Kaylee and Madison, on the other hand, went out to a downtown bar called the Corner Club at around 10 p.m. Kaylee had earlier posted pictures of her and her friends on Instagram that night, and she added the caption, "One lucky girl to be surrounded by these people every day." with a white heart emoji. The victims were reported to have returned home in the early hours of the morning on November 13th. According to information released by investigators, Zana and Ethan got back home at around 1:45 a.m., while Kaylee and Madison went home through a car ride, first thought to be an Uber by investigators, and returned at about 1:56 a.m. Kaylee and Madison were also captured on a food truck's Twitch livestream around 1:30 a.m., ordering food and talking with each other before they headed home. Available images we have of them are in this surveillance footage obtained by ABC News. They're heading towards a local food truck which is about a 6-minute walk from the bar. Police say this man with them is not a suspect. This is the grub truck. They have been streaming live on Twitch since about 10 p.m. And around 1:41 a.m. we see all three of them walk into frame. Maddie and Kaylee order food. Have a good night. Bye. He goes, hello, hi, welcome back to my things. Hi, King, I would like the, MQA, dreadful company. It's 100% enough. No soup, okay, you up, bro, oh, yeah, the more stuff. Thank you, absolutely. That's okay. How many more do you need? That's the second pass of Dawn's Ball. Like $10 to our church. Cool. Thank you. Course have you. Thank you in our child. They wait around for about 10 minutes. Around 1:51 a.m., they grab food from the truck window and walk out of frame. Police reports claim that the attack was likely carried out when the victims were in bed. They estimated that the murders happened between 4 a.m. and 4:25 a.m. Evidence like the DoorDash delivery that was made to Zana Kernodle at 4 a.m., and the investigation of her phone that showed that she was on TikTok at 4:12 a.m., supported this idea. The victims were attacked on the second and third floors of the house. Zana and Ethan in Zana's room on the second floor, Kaylee and Madison in Madison's room on the third floor. When the authorities arrived at the scene, they found the victims with stab wounds and the walls of their rooms were splattered with blood. The other students living in the house were left alone. In the court documents, one of the surviving roommates told investigators that she was woken up by a noise in the house during the morning of the attack, and she opened her door twice during that period. She claimed that the second time, she heard a sound like crying coming from Zana's room, as well as a male voice that said, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." The roommate also told the investigators that when she opened her door a third time, she saw a man whom she did not recognize walk past her and leave through the sliding door, while she stood there in a shocked state before locking herself in her room. The affidavit states that the same surviving roommate says she hears what sounds like crying coming from Zana's room. She opens her door a second time and says she hears a male voice say something to the effect of, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." At 4:17 a.m., this security camera on a neighbor's home picks up distorted audio of what sounds like voices or whimper followed by a loud thud. A dog can also be heard barking numerous times. This camera is less than 50 feet from Zana's bedroom. The affidavit states the surviving roommate then opens her door a third time. She sees a masked man walking past her towards the sliding glass door in the kitchen. In frozen shock, she locks her door. She described the unknown figure as dressed in black and wearing a face mask to cover his nose and mouth. She also reported that the figure was about 5'10", or taller, athletically built with bushy eyebrows. When the remaining two housemates woke up later, they found the victims and called other friends to the house before calling 911 at 11:58 a.m. to request assistance with an unconscious person. 8 hours after the killings, a 911 call reports an unconscious person at the scene of the crime. Shortly after, Moscow police discover the bodies of 4 students. The police did not find any signs of a break-in or a scuffle in the house. No damaged furniture or broken doors, and nothing seemed to be missing from the premises. They were left perplexed with no signs pointing to how the killer got in. A coroner described the site of the tragedy to journalists as traumatic. An investigation was immediately launched into the killings by the Moscow Police Department. supported by the Idaho State Police and the Latah County Sheriff's Office. The FBI also eventually got involved in the investigation. A reported number of about 130 law officers were on the case from all agencies. The results of the preliminary autopsy conducted on the victims showed that they were most likely attacked with a large, fixed-blade knife and were stabbed multiple times, leading to their deaths. The results also suggested that the victims were asleep at the time of the attack, but some of them showed wounds gotten from trying to defend themselves. There were no signs of sexual assault, and none of the victims were tied up or gagged. The final verdict given was homicide through stabbing. No weapon was found at the scene of the crime, only a tan leather knife sheath that would later prove important to the investigation. The police came out to announce that they believed that the attack was an isolated and targeted one, and there was no imminent threat to the community of Moscow. But with the culprit remaining unknown, the town, especially the college students, could not hide their tension and fear, and it didn't help matters when the police went back on their previous statement to claim, due to the lack of a suspect, they could not categorically say that there was no threat to the community. This did nothing to ease the fear of the students, however, as it was reported that some students left campus and went home to their families. The department also focused on dispelling misinformation, saying there is speculation without factual backing, stoking community fears, and spreading false information. The mayor of the town, Art Bedge, condemned the deaths as senseless acts of violence, while the president of the University of Idaho, Scott Green, offered his condolences to the families of the victims and the Moscow community. Because of the incident, the university canceled all its classes for Monday, November 14, 2022. The administration also planned a candlelight vigil to be held in honor of the victims at the University of Idaho Administration Building lawn for November 16, but it was postponed for about 2 weeks because a significant number of students had left the campus. It was eventually held on November 30, with some family members of the victims in attendance. The police then began to request that the public help provide them with any pieces of evidence from that night, specifically video recordings of the house. They set up both a phone line and email for students and other residents to send any tips that they might have that would assist them with their investigation. For a 2011 to a 2013 Hyundai Elantra. December 7th, no suspects have been publicly identified, and Moscow police appeal to the public for help. Any assistance you can give us, anybody that owns one, anybody that knows of someone who owned one or may have been driving one, if you could get a hold of us through our tip line or call us directly, we'd appreciate that. The investigators reported that they had received at least 15,000 tips in just over a month. During a press conference on November 23rd, the chief of the police department in Moscow revealed that they had gotten a number of tips that Kaylee allegedly had a stalker, and looked extensively into it, but they could not confirm it to be true or identify any such stalker at that time. After receiving numerous tips and conducting a lot of interviews, on November 30th, the police released a list of people who they believed were not involved in the crime. They included the 2 surviving roommates and everyone that was at the house when 911 was called, the driver who took Kaylee and Madison home, as well as Kaylee's former longtime boyfriend, a fellow student, whom Kaylee and Madison called multiple times that night. They also revealed that they had not concluded whether the victims were the actual targets or the residents in general. On December 7th, the police announced that they were investigating a white or light-colored Hyundai Elantra manufactured around 2011 to 2013, which had an unknown license plate and was captured on video by a camera in the neighborhood around the time of the murders. Investigators noticed that the car had made multiple passes along the same route near the residence, and another surveillance recording showed the car speeding away from the victim's neighborhood at 4:20 a.m. They did not confirm whether they believed the driver of the Elantra was connected to the killer, but shared their thoughts that the person might possess critical information concerning the case. For the families of the victims, the period of the investigation proved to be a really difficult time. During an interview on the Today Show, Christy Goncalves, the mother of one of the victims, revealed her frustration with the police. She claimed that the families of some of the victims felt that they were left in the dark about the investigation process, as she said she only found out about the investigation of the Elantra on the news along with everyone else, instead of being briefed by the investigators. Gonzalez says she and her family support the police and the work investigators are doing, but they're critical of authorities for what they called poor communication with victims' families. You found out about the white car from a press release, yes? Yes. Did they send you the press release? No? A Moscow police spokesperson has forwarded to NBC News a copy of the email press release about the Hyundai, sent to the family's attorney approximately 30 minutes before the police made it public. On Friday, the 30th of December 2022, an FBI SWAT team along with the Pennsylvania State Police arrested a 28-year-old man named Brian Christopher Kohberger in Monroe County, northeastern Pennsylvania, about 2,500 miles away from Moscow, Idaho. Kohberger was arrested on 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of burglary. Brian Christopher Kohberger was a PhD student at Washington State University in Pullman, less than 8 miles west of Moscow. The sole suspect was studying for a doctoral degree in criminology at WSU and had also worked as teaching assistant. It was reported that less than 2 weeks before the murders, faculty members met with him to discuss growing concerns about his behavior, and he was eventually relieved of his duties as a teaching assistant on December 19th, a few days before his arrest. The reason that was given was his unsatisfactory performance as a teaching assistant, including his failure to meet the norms of professional behavior in his interactions with the faculty. So how was he caught? After the investigators received the intel about the Hyundai Elantra, authorities in Pullman started to investigate a white Elantra belonging to Kohberger, who had traveled home in it with his father to Pennsylvania for the holidays. The authorities started to zero in on Kohberger because his driver's license information and photograph matched the description given by one of the surviving roommates. According to court documents, the investigators discovered that Kohberger got new license plates on November 18, 5 days after the quadruple homicide. They also looked into cell phone data that showed that Kohberger's phone stopped connecting to the network in Pullman around 2:47 a.m. on November 13th, before showing up again around 4:48 a.m. near Blaine, Idaho, which is south of Moscow. The cell phone data also showed that his phone used a cell tower near the victim's residence around 9 a.m. on November 13th, roughly 5 hours after the killings. They went on to find out that his phone had used the cell phone tower that was closest to the victim's apartment at least 12 times between June and November 13th of 2022. The evidence that helped the investigators to truly pin Kohberger to the crime was the DNA found on the leather knife sheath that was on Madison's bed, as well as trash that was obtained from the Kohberger family residence. Before the arrest, investigators kept an eye on Kohberger outside of his parents' Pennsylvania home. They reported that he was seen multiple times wearing surgical gloves, and observed putting away trash bags not inside his own garbage can, but in that of a neighbor. The authorities tested the sheath left behind at the apartment and the trash for DNA samples at the Idaho State Labs, and found a match in both items with a profile of a male familial connection to Kohberger, reportedly excluding 99.9998% of the male population. That is according to court documents. At the time of his arrest, authorities said that they found Kohberger in the kitchen, wearing examination gloves, and putting trash into separate Ziploc bags. The authorities reported that Kohberger had completely cleaned out his car. But they searched the house where he was arrested and found a knife, a pistol, and a black face mask, as well as ID cards inside a glove inside a box. Since the arrest, Kohberger agreed to be extradited to Idaho over a year ago to face trial for the charges leveled against him. He made his first appearance in court at the Latah County Courthouse in Moscow, Idaho, on January 5, 2023. In May of 2023, a grand jury indicted him of the murder and burglary charges, which led to him being arraigned. Kohberger refused to enter a guilty or not guilty plea to the charges though, so the judge entered a not guilty plea on his behalf. And on June 26, 2023, the prosecutors announced that they will be seeking the death penalty if he is found guilty of the charges. The court has rejected fillings from Kohberger's defense counsel to dismiss the indictment, and he will stand trial. A trial was first set for October 2023, but it has been shifted a few times. The trial is now expected to commence in June of 2025, much to the frustration of the families of the victims. Welcome back. A little breaking news out of the state of Idaho. A trial date has now been set for murder suspect Brian Kohberger. All the parties have agreed to a June 2025 trial date. And this, of course, has been... The family's been very frustrated. It's been now a year and a half and still no trial dates that's gone back and forth. And now here we go. During this hearing going on right now, the trial date has been set. All right, let's go into court for it. That moment there in the Latah County Courthouse. Thank you, Judge. You're on our first. I know the court has listed this as taking place in Latah County. We haven't been heard on our change of venue yet. That's Tacoma, isn't it? So, I don't want anybody thinking I'm agreeing to Latah County. It's all. The June of 2025, that's a time frame that we have been working towards. I am hopeful that we can come in there. We're working towards that date. I think it's reasonable to set that date. As the court's aware, mitigation is something that takes a significant amount of time. We've had that underway since the day we took this case. We continue to work that very hard. I spoke with our mitigation expert last night about this date. And there's a lot of work yet to be done, but we're still working towards that. So I think it's reasonable to set that. I just want the court to know that that's not finished at this point. That's very much ongoing, and new things are coming out that we need to follow up. But with that said, I think it's reasonable to go ahead and pick the June of 2025 as a trial date at that time. And by the way, I think, you understand that, all counsel understand that this is a 3-month trial. So, I was calculating 2 weeks to set the jury, and then 8 weeks of trial, and then 2 weeks for mitigation and sentencing. And that's the guess, but I think it's enough time for all of those things to take care of. And obviously, the last 2 weeks would only be conducted. Yes, go ahead. Thank you, Your Honor. I do want to bring up a couple of issues I have with some of the deadlines. I looked this over. Our team has talked about it. I've gone over this with Mr. Kohberger. I do have a couple of concerns about the deadlines, and I'll just bring those up to the court for the court's consideration. As far as motions challenging the death penalty, and now scan and right under. All right, there you have it, June 2025 as the trial. In the aftermath of the murders, the owner of the property where the sad incident took place donated the house to the University of Idaho. The house was demolished on December 28, 2023. The university has also announced plans to build a memorial garden on campus in honor of the 4 slain students. According to a spokesperson, the student community will be carried along in both the plans for a memorial garden and the decision on what will be done with the site where the event occurred. The university also awarded posthumous degrees to the 4 victims on May 13, 2023. Reports say that a consciousness of personal security increased among the students at the University of Idaho following the attack, and that a lot of the students feel that the incident will stick with them forever. The families of 3 of the victims, Zana, Ethan, and Madison, have set up scholarships in their honor. One of them is the Ethan Smile Foundation, which was established by the family of Ethan Chapin and is now benefiting dozens of high school students. With the trial expected to come up next year, what do you think about this case? Is the trial date too far? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you want more videos like this, please be sure to like the video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on more true crime videos. See you in the next one.